Is this the dagger?
G'day guys, JB here. Game 3 of the NBA Finals in the books. First game in South Beach. The first NBA Finals game in South Beach since 2014. And it was the Denver Nuggets from Mile High City, essentially going from the very northwestern point of the United States, going down to the farthest point of the southeast of the United States and getting the job done. Another historical night for the Denver Nuggets, another historical night for Nikola Jokic, and indeed an historical night for the combination of Jokic and Murray. Getting the job done, really, really dominant third term, setting up what was the result in this one here. And for Miami, they are probably just left licking their wounds and have to wonder whether that third term alone is what has ended their championship chances in this one. 2-1 series lead right now to Denver. Looks really promising, but there is still at least one more game in this series in Miami, and they have a chance to square it up in a couple of days' time. So let's take a look. Let's get into it. The Game 3 review for the 2023 NBA Finals. And of course, at quarter time, scores were locked away at 24 apiece. Jokic and Butler really set the tone and that they were in the lead of their respective teams. Of course, quarter time, Jokic 10 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 5 of 8 from the field with 1 turnover there. For Butler, it was 10 points, 2 rebounds and a block, 4 and 9 from the field. Perfect from the line there. And when you've got two teams this caliber with two players of that caliber, and again, you're going to look at who they've been compared to throughout this postseason. For anything on the perimeter, for Butler, it's been Jordan. For anything for a center, for Jokic, it's been Wilt. And that's the kind of leaders, they're the kind of leaders they have been throughout this entire series. But for much like most of the series, Miami preferring bulk over efficiency. We've seen some really inefficient scoring from Miami, and it hasn't necessarily been for the fact that they shoot a lot of threes. It's purely from the fact that they're just not making a lot of shots. It's not uncommon to see Miami anywhere between 37% and 45% as a team from the field. And when you're going up against an epically efficient team like Denver, if you're not going to put the ball in the cup, you are not going to be given any sort of leeway there. But it was, to be fair though, they were getting points from deep and the line, and that is ultimately what kept them in the game there. Not turning over the ball despite their inefficient scoring load as well. 0 turnovers in the first term. Again, bulk shooting, not necessarily efficient shooting, keeping them in the game. It was evident early though that Denver were clearly going to be the better rebounding team. They were going to be battling better on the glass. And if that extra effort and hustle was going to be there on the road, and you've got a team at home that is not being efficient, well, the result starts to dictate and predicate itself on those factors. Denver as well, ball movement return for the Nuggets, set the tone later in the game. Big part of this was Jokic, but big part of it as well was just the movement off the ball. There wasn't a lot of ball screens. There wasn't a lot of isolation play. Ball getting through to the second and third side of the offense, really making a difference in the first quarter. Statistically, as I mentioned there, the efficiency for Denver compared to Miami wasn't even comparable. 52.2% from the field compared to 37.5% from the field. Denver going 12 of 23, 9 of 24 for Miami. Those single-digit scoring quarters really hurting them. Of course, this is off the back of one of the most efficient fourth quarters in NBA final history for the Heat. Again, as I mentioned on the rebound count, 15-9 to open the first quarter. Ball movement as well, and again, mentioned that before, 9-4 in favour of Denver. And the Miami Heat actually winning the turnover count, no turnovers in the first, and that is ultimately what kept them in this one. Second quarter at the half, scores were 53-48 there. After Jokic and Butler, it was definitely the genuine second options and second leaders of their respective teams taking it up to one another there, and Jamal Murray and Bam Adebayo. Bam leading the scoring for Miami, and of course Jamal Murray getting a bucket. The second quarter and third terms have really been key for him, not only throughout this series but certainly throughout the postseason. And yeah, a big contribution there from Jamal Murray. Massive contribution once again from Bam Adebayo. Another key factor in it as well, Caleb Martin started to step up and replicate his conference finals efforts. Second term was really key for him, and of course, you know, when you're an inefficient squad, as Miami have been, you need to get guys, if you are putting bulk points up, you need them to be scoring in bulk, and that's what Caleb Martin was able to do. And looked like he was going to start firing up and get back to that form that had seen him in the Eastern Conference Finals. Both sides started to battle again. Shooting efficiency showed this as both teams took a significant dip, both in the very low 40% region there from the field. But Jokic looked dominant even without having to score. Not that that's really a shock right now. I tried to explain this to a mate the other day. He's the most efficient, no-need ball-in-hand player in the league, and that isn't a shooter. Now, everyone thinks that's facilitation, but gets on the boards. He's a very good rebounder. I mean, he is a big guy, but he is a very good rebounder. And when he's getting the ball moving, let alone when he's actually, you know, making that pass for the assist, is when Denver look a lot better. If he's isolation, he draws a lot of defensive presence, because inside of 10 feet, he's one of the most efficient scorers the league's ever seen. When you're going to be talking about a guy who is able to find a cutting teammate, that makes things accountable. But on top of that, it's just the ability for him to make a really big swing pass from one side of the floor. It's his ability to find someone when an awkward drive is underway. Just really able to, again, just get themselves steadying. And that was just for the fact that he wasn't scoring the ball. Denver themselves weren't the greatest team on the road this season, but they looked pretty steady at halftime. Again, their home record was sensational this year, and I think they were only just around 500 on the road, which is a real concern that I had for them heading in as the number one seed. But again, they've really defined all of the skepticism anyone's had around them. Miami themselves, though, at home, no matter the margin at the half, are a dangerous team, and we've seen what they've been able to do in the third quarter, what they've been able to do in the second half of games throughout this postseason run. Again, we're talking about a team that's come from the 8th position, beat the first seed, beat the second seed, and now taking on their third 50-win opponent. At the half, Jamal Murray leading the way, 20 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 turnover, 8 of 13 from the field, 3 of 5 from deep, 1 of 2 from the line. Jimmy Butler still the high point man for the Heat, 14 points, 1 rebound, 2 assists, 1 block. Field goal percentage started to drop once again, though. The 6 of 16 from the field, not ideal. 0 of 2 from deep, not ideal. And 2 of 2 from the line, not ideal. As I mentioned, field goal percentages dropping. Lifted slightly for Miami, certainly dropped for Denver, still leading it though, 47.7 to 39.1. Denver at that point, 21 of 44 from the field. Miami, 18 of 46, so they weren't struggling to get looks, and they were still leading the turnover count at this point as well, as far as having not turned the ball over. Rebound count though, plus 7 to Denver. That really was a sign of things to come. 28 to 21 on the glass, 16 to 9 the ball movement. By the end of the third quarter though, it was 82 to 68, and it was one of the most dominant quarters we've seen. Miami's fourth quarter was dominant last game. This third term here very much could be a championship winning quarter. Jokic and Butler looked to set the tone for their teams, 12 points apiece, but it was Jokic just dominating the ball defense on the defensive glass. Jokic facilitating, Jokic getting about it on the offensive boards as well. Denver clearly the more efficient team, and they were just able to break away. I think it was 40 to 56 field goal percentage, and a lot of that came from their 7 offensive rebounds and a total rebound count for the quarter of 17 to 3. It truly changed the game. Even if they don't get a single offensive rebound, right there, they lose the rebound count by 3. If they're all, it's all square on the rebound count. If they don't get one of those, so I mean that's just the kind of dominance right there from Jokic. Certainly dominance from Denver. Second, third points, just getting it done. Bam, probably his worst quarter all series, and you can make a case it may cost Miami the championship. This would have really swung the series. They had a dominant third quarter at home, going into a fourth where they were competitive in the fourth, even though they didn't win the fourth quarter. You've got to wonder just what kind of series we're looking at right now, what kind of conversations are going on about the Heat, and what kind of conversations are going on about Denver. But Bam really had a bad third term. Butler did his thing, albeit probably a couple of times he still probably needed to score a bit more. But Bam, probably the worst quarter all series, one of his worst quarters, well, certainly the worst quarter he had since Robert Williams all of a sudden started and Al Horford starting to really make inroads on him there in the Boston series. Could cost Miami a championship. If Denver win this next one, I don't see them losing it at home in Game 5, so we'll see what happens there. I'm shocked though because the continued limited rotations from Denver aren't killing them. And again, it might be the conditioning It's the fact that, they do play in the Mile High City for a reason. It might be the conditioning. I'm not really too sure exactly what's going on with it, but their limited rotations aren't killing them in the postseason. And again, I think a lot of it's coming down in this series to their efficiency, their second chance opportunities, all of that sort of stuff. Miami weren't able to eliminate the off-ball domination of the Joker either. So while he had a 4-point second quarter, he had 4 and 5 in the rebounding assist department. He had another big rebounding quarter, another big passing quarter here. And that's really evident with the stat line at three-quarter time for Jokic. An absurd 26 points, 18 rebounds, 9 assists and a block. That's three-quarter time. 26, 18 and 9 with a block. 3 turnovers, 10 and 16 from the field, 1 or 2 from deep, 5 or 6 from the line. Wrap it up at that point. He's the best player on the floor. Miami with Butler, and he had a really quiet fourth quarter, which really hurt as well. 26 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists and a block. 11 or 22 from the field, 1 or 3 from deep, 3 or 4 from the line. But again, just that team game, killing it there for the Nuggets. 50.7 to 39.4 from the field. Denver with only 1 more field goal attempt, but with 8 more makes. 34 to 67 compared to 26 from 66. Rebound count at this point blew out something chronic. 45 to 24 in the rebound count for Denver, plus 21 on the glass. 11 to 5 on the offensive boards. 24 to 14 to Denver in the ball movement in the assist department. Ball movement, second chance points, crashing the glass, efficient when you've got the ball, usually leads to a win. And that's exactly what happened with the final score of 109 to 94. Summary of the fourth, Jamal Murray once again took over the scoring reins to close out the game. Another big quarter for him. Are we shocked at this point? I'm not saying they're Kobe and Shaq, but you've got a guy who's so dominant as a center and demands so much attention. You've got another guy who is an all-star, all-NBA caliber player who can take over games just like that. And that's exactly what Jamal Murray's doing right now in the fourth quarter. Miami's bench did their best to make this one a close game. In the closing few minutes, it cut the margin down to around 10-9 points. Nearly made it a 7-point game, but it was just a couple of errant jump shots that missed. Bit of hustle on the boards there from Denver. Got that one done. Jimmy Butler, for me, though, still hasn't had that game to make it an interesting series. Had a better game this evening. A better game in Game 3. But 2 points in the fourth quarter. After you're down 14 at home, you're now down 2-1. You've given home court advantage back to the best seed in the league, that's left. Certainly the best seed in the West. The most consistent number 1 seed in the league all year. Again, hasn't had that game to make it interesting this series. Really not liking his prospects right now. It's just a fact. You do have to look at it and you do have to consider it. He hasn't been Jimmy Butler this series. Yeah, had an okay third term, which proved to be of no avail. Had a really good opening term, which proved to be not much in the second term. Can't be playing sporadically like this. You've got to take accountability, and Jimmy would know that, and that's exactly what the mentality he would have. For Denver, very limited offense all quarter. Still got the job done. Won the quarter 27 to 26. I think they had 13 field goals. 7 to 13, I think, for the fourth quarter. Bit of personal stats here just to wrap this one up. Of course, player of the game, Nikola Jokic. 32 points, 21 rebounds, 10 assists, 2 blocks. The 5th 30-20-10 game in playoff history. His 3rd. He's had 2 this postseason. There have only been 2 others in history, one to Wilt, one to Kareem. Here's what we talk about when we talk about all-time historical achievements by guys. We're talking in the nature of 50, 60 years ago, everything else like this happened. My parents are 60 this year. It's barely happened in their lifetime and they wouldn't remember it. Jimmy Butler, of course, finished 28, 2 and 4, 1 block. As I mentioned, just not getting it done at the moment. Denver, plus 25 on the rebound count. 51.2 to 37% the field goal percentage. And here's what I mean about getting efficiency versus bulk. Took 12 less shots than Miami and made 7 more. 41 to 80 compared to 34 to 92. Again for Jokic, his 3rd 30-20-10 playoff game, 2 this postseason. He's got 3 of the 5 in history. The other 2 are Wilt and Kareem. This is what we talk about when, everyone talks, numbers, and it always comes back to this, comes back to that. Maybe that's a realization of how important the numbers are and how impactful the numbers are. On the other side of it as well, Jokic and Murray, the only teammates to ever have 30-point triple-doubles in the same game. And we're not talking postseason, we're not talking regular season, we're not just talking finals, we're talking ever. It's the only game in NBA history where two teammates have both had a 30-point triple-double. Ever. Mike Malone post-game said it was the best game they've had as a combo for 7 years. You can make a case it's the greatest game by any combination ever. I don't believe it. I mean, I would take Elgin Baylor 70 and I'd take Elgin Baylor 60 and 30 and Jerry West the 30-point triple-double in a regular, it was a regular season game. They did beat Wilt, who had 70 and 40 that night. The only 70-40 game in league history. The only time two opposing players have both had at least 50 field goal attempts. But they've done it in the finals, they've done it on the road. Huge, massive effort there. As I mentioned, the MVP of the game, Nikola Jokic, the MVP of the series, Nikola Jokic, the best active player in the NBA right now, Nikola Jokic. Denver lead this one 2-1, game 4 in 2 days in Miami. They've got a lot of work to do, the Heat. They're at home, but they've got a lot of work to do. The Nuggets need to win, go home, close the series out in 5, and crown themselves NBA champion. We will see what happens. Fortune favours the brave, and right now the bravest team of them all is the Denver Nuggets. That's my wrap on Game 3. I will see you after Game 4. That's been me, guys. I'm out.